the first to join. That's congrats. Okay. I think it's always good to be the first for something. All right. So yeah, before others are joining, let's maybe start with sharing wins from the past week. Okay. So basically, we like to bring some positive focus to our attention, right? There's probably good and bad things happen in the last week, but let's focus on the good things, the wins, the progress first, because there's definitely some. Okay, so would you like to share your wins from last week, Lalit? Anything you've learned, anything you've done, especially from, let's say, a 10x perspective. Are you able to speak though, Lalit? Oh, network issue? Okay, all right. So maybe let's hear from um, Vaishali. Would you like to share any win for you since last week? Um, what, Vaishali, can you speak?
Hello.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
So, what has been your win from last week?
So my win was I was preparing for my interview
Okay.
and
All
I'm
right.
doing well in it.
Okay. Nice. Excellent. Excellent. So, I
Yes.
think you are probably progressing towards the MBA
Yes, sir.
interview, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Great. So, Karthik, how about you? What is your win this past week? Anything you like to share, Karthik? I mean, right? Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, that it said you have completed your mini projects. Okay, good, good. I think it is would love to know what your mini projects are. Okay, if you can share as well. So Karthik, what's your what has been your week this past week? Anything you've done, you've learned, you've let go. Okay, that's another kind of win you can probably have. Something
Hello.
that you have let go, or you have said no to, right? So, yeah, anything you'd like to share, Karthik?
So I was taking a course on business analysis, and I'm progressing well on that. And we are working on the pure harvest marketing plan. It's going well.
Nice, nice. All right. So good to hear that. Yeah. In the next hour, second hour, maybe we'll, do some share, right? Okay, and you can maybe share updates, progress there. All
Yeah.
right. So I think I'll share one win on my end as well. Okay, so you guys probably know that we are alongside with a sender. Uh, I'm personally involved in an organic project called Pure Harvest. And one of the ideas is to actually grow live veggie and then send to high-end restaurants on display. Okay, so that client customers might want to eat fresh ones. But this model, yesterday we just, I want to test out if this actually works. So I actually contacted one of the largest vegetarian chain restaurant owner, which I know is kind of a good a friend. I would say like a mentor level contact. And he just said that restaurants will not buy into this, so we have to think of something else. In fact, he mentioned that the whole restaurant has to be designed around this concept. Okay, in order for the customer experience to be right. Okay, so I think that's a take-home lesson. That before you actually go and build things, try to gather as much intelligence as possible, especially from what's called quote unquote believable peoples. Okay, so this is actually a concept from Ray Dalio, which is the founder of Bridgewater. We all get lots of advices, right, from different people all the time, but you want to discern about what's called the believability. Okay, so this is I think, important concept. is that if this person has done something similar, achieved something, had successful experiences, okay, in an area. For example, this guy is very good at drawing architecture, right? And even has won award or have won major cases, projects. Then that person is probably a believable person in architecture drawing, right? However, if it comes to sales and marketing, or let's say to how to grow organic farm produce, right? You probably don't want to listen to this guy's advice or opinion. Okay, I mean it may have some value, but the person would not qualify as a quote unquote believable person. Okay, so this is important. Okay, to actually think about, that the advices you're being told or you're receiving, are they coming from believable person, in the sense that it's something they have actual experiences with, and they have done something successfully in that regard. Okay, so yeah, so that's so we basically check with a restaurant owner to validate whether our idea is sound. Okay, all right, so I think that ties well to actually this week's topic. We are now for Great Unicorn entering actually week 6. Okay, so week 6 topic. I mean, if you go to this week's video course, it's actually about launching. Okay, launching your product, launching your services. Now, about launching, it's interesting that we might have the idea that we want to build a good product, that looks nice. Okay, or at least it has the basic functionality, right? So that when you show to people, you're kind of a bit proud of it, right? However, YC recommends against launching something you're actually proud of. In fact, if if the product or service you are launching is not embarrassing to you, you are already launching too late. Okay, I'll say this again. Whatever you're trying to build, if you are launching this without embarrassment, okay, then you're probably launching this too late. Now, obviously, this is a kind of philosophy, right? Probably there are people who has other thinking, right? But YC is saying this, I think, for good reason. Oftentimes, a lot of the ideas are in our head. We think this is a good solution. We think this might work. We think, there's a problem. However, until you have actually checked this with the reality, with the market, right, with the actual thing, probably what you're getting is, you're thinking most of the time it's likely to be somewhat off. Okay, which is why feedback, constant and frequent and quick feedback is actually quite important. Okay, the faster you can give feedback, the better, actually. So this is something yeah, YC has. So there are actually different types of launch. You can launch something, what's called silent launch, which is, you just create a web page describing maybe on a one pager. You can get feedback from friends and family, friends and family launch to strangers, to community, to social media, using pre-order, okay, or waitlist. Finally, it's the press launch, okay. So um, often, before you launch, you might want to do what's called a one sentence description, okay, focusing on what you're doing. And one easy way is you can use something well known to make analogy of what you're trying to build. Okay, so for example, the agri-tech startup that we're also building within a center called Pure Harvest, we are positioning as the Tesla for agriculture. Okay, that's actually something we are coming up with. Is that we might want to build a Tesla-like model to traditional agriculture. Agriculture is, as you probably know, it's old, right? It's an old industry, and there's a lot of practices. It's very physical, very labor involved. But how can we actually make this more like a kind of a Tesla experience, right? Okay, that's our challenge, but that is also our positioning and our aspiration. Can we become the Tesla for agriculture, right? That's kind of the, and Tesla is well known, okay? So that's you might want to think about what's the one sentence description for whatever you're trying to build, okay? So that's the first, I guess. Um, and actually, they they recommend launching quick. Okay, so let's start, I think, with today's first question. Okay, which is what kind of launching will you do? Will you do a silent launch, a friends family launch, a community or social media launch, a pre-order launch, a waitlist launch? You know, what kind of launch would you like to do, and when will it happen? Okay, this is also important. When? Okay, all right. So I'll give everybody just 60 seconds to think about this question about what kind of launch for your project, for your product, what kind of launch are you doing, are you planning to do? And, you know, and also, not just what kind of launch, but when are you going to launch this? All right, okay. So 60 seconds to answer the first question. All right, let's start. All right, so 10 more seconds just to wrap up, finish. Okay, all right. Okay, so hope everybody's done, okay, with this. Okay, all right, so actually regarding the question, the topic of launching, YC recommends you to launch again and again. Okay. Okay. The reason is that likely your product is not perfect. Actually, no product is perfect or services. You always can have something to work on to improve upon or to grow, right? You can either grow your feature, you can grow your list of audience, right? There are lots of areas you can improve. So try to launch and relaunch again and again and again. The iteration is actually crucial. Okay, having this iteration. In fact, the shorter the cycle, the iteration, perhaps the better, because each iteration you're building something and you're getting feedback, building something and getting feedback. All right. Okay. So how do you get your first customers? Now, I think one of the key idea is that I think it's especially for technical based people with specific technique, right? Skill. With technical founders, myself included, we may not think we are, salespeople or that we are great at sales. However, if you decide to do entrepreneurship, you have to become an expert sales. Okay, there's just no way to get around that. In fact, a lot of things, everything in our life, more or less, is about selling, right? You try to convince someone to join your team. You try to convince clients, users to use your product, right? Like right now, I'm trying to convince you guys that attending Create Unicorn Ascender may be one of the best investment of your time and for you at this stage of your life, right? I'm also trying to sell something to you. So there's nothing, I think, nothing bad or wrong about selling, right? If you don't sell, then people actually will not know your product or service or solution. And if your solution really is helping some people to get better, right, to solve their problem, to ease their pain, you actually have a moral responsibility to sell. Does that make sense? Okay. I actually learned this from another one of my mentor, Dean. Uh, um, Dean. He's a student of Tony Robbins. Um, Dean Graziosi. Okay, Dean Graziosi. He actually mentioned something similar along those lines. Is that when you're trying to build up a product or become an entrepreneur, likely you're offering a solution to a problem, right? That somebody else is experiencing. Like for me here, what a sender or what Create Unicorn is trying to do is to offer those of you who want to become an entrepreneur or who might want to one day, enter that path to get a better understanding of the process, the mindset, right, the skills and techniques, so that you can save yourself a lot of time, effort, and trouble. Okay. And that's kind of the pain I myself was experiencing when I was, a beginner, beginning my entrepreneurial journey. I did not have access to more experienced people or mentorship, right? And that actually was, I think, a great disadvantage for my growth at that time. Now I know better, right? Right now I try to get as high quality, as good mentors as possible and coaches and try to learn from them. So it's very different now how I operate compared to, let's say, 10 years ago, right? And I like that to be transferred to you guys. So you don't have to spend, the time, the money, and the energy, wasted. So basically, you do want to sell, right? It's actually communicating values. And there's also, regarding sales, there's actually a very logical process in 4 stages, which is you start with a customer list. Okay, it can be maybe a list of community of people or list of, let's say, students in your club, right? Or some kind of list. And then what you do is you try to contact them, right? Try to engage them with whatever, email, message, words, right? With your mouth. It all works. You try to engage, contact them, and then try to demo, give them a taste of your product or service. Okay, this can be in the form of a demonstration, a a webinar, right? Maybe a presentation of some sorts. Okay, you basically show them whatever you're doing, offering, how is it related to them? Why is this helping them? Why is this, solving the pain or providing value to them? And then the fourth stage is you close the sale, meaning that they have signed up for this, they have agreed to pay, they have decided to become your client or user, right? You close the sale. Okay, so that's a four-stage process. Now, each of these stages, from the client, the customer list, to the contact, to do the demo, to closing, you can track the conversion rate, right, of that. So I mean, this is something I think I might have shown you guys earlier, but when you are having this approach, right, regardless of what the number actually look like, whether your conversion rate is high or low is irrelevant at this point, is because the first stage, what you want is just to get through all these 4 stages and get some actual number, right? And then your next task is to improve your conversion rate. Okay, so for example, I'll show on screen. Okay, I think I've shared this before. This is actually the actual numbers for for people who have entered right into Create Unicorn or into Ascender. This is the number of actual views versus those who have applied, accepted, right? And we do have different acceptance rate. but this is the conversion rate, right? And this is something, once we have the numbers, we can actually then try to improve upon it, okay, to see if we can make this better, right? All right, so um, I think for the second question of today is about, oh, and by the way, you want to go with the easiest first. Okay, whatever that's easy for you to execute, get done, you want to do that first. Okay, initially, a lot of these are getting your first customers, especially the first 100. That's probably the hardest, but also, you might want to do it manually. Okay, all right, so our second question is, do you currently have a customer list? Okay, to begin with. And what would be the number one method to grow your list, to grow your customer list? Okay, all right. So again, let's spend just 1 minute on this, okay, to have some idea, some thinking about how you can actually do this. All right, so 1 minute, let's start. All right, 10 more seconds. Okay, all right. So sometimes the list, it can be list for users, but also sometimes can be a list for partners. Okay, I'll give you an example. I was actually enrolled into a funnel marketing program by her name is Ellen Lin. She actually had a list of 350,000 people, okay, that she has accumulated over the years. So part of the, I guess, the perks of being her student is that you can then advertise your coaching or your course uh, for free, to her list. She actually will promote your product or service to her list. So that is just one person to convince, right? In order for you to appear on his or her list. So sometimes the initial list that you're trying to craft may be a partners list. Okay, that's also something that's possible. All right, so I think YC this week mentioned some important take concept, which is initially, although at some point you definitely want to scale up your product or service because that's the only way that you're going to become a unicorn, okay, or to have millions of revenue. Okay, the only way for you to do that is you're able to scale your product or service. However, I think this is a common thing, mistake rather. I'm myself guilty of it as well. Is that we oftentimes try to scale things prematurely. Okay, in other words, so for example, I'll give you an example. Um, there may be quite a number of people think that in order to start a business, right, or to become an entrepreneur, you have to have funding. You have to have some money. Okay, while this is true, okay, it may be true that you want to have some money to build up your initial product or service. Nowadays, there are actually ways you can probably do it cheaper or even for free by getting with get on with some partners or do it yourself. But actually, with the to build something, um, especially with the at the early stage, what you really want to do is to validate that the product or the service is actually valid to some people, right? It's valuable to them and it actually provides some kind of benefit, that they enjoy and they are willing to pay for. Okay. This is something, you want to validate that before you actually start to scale things. So it's actually not necessary to initially to invest too much into the scaling aspect. It's more important to get the product, the service right. And that often is through manual labor, manual effort, maybe talking to people. So YC actually recommends that you do things manually until the system no longer can handle the workload. Okay, we have an actual example for a sender as well, which is many of you probably know the onboarding process, right? It might involve getting an offer letter, right? And because we actually have enrolled hundreds, okay, into this, so the offer letter sent out, that was actually a manual. We did not really automate that, and that was a manual process, and that kind of strained us a bit. Okay, it was kind of chaotic in getting the offer letters out, and and our assistant, Sahar, she was really, I think, in some pain in trying to get everything done. Okay, but that's the point when the system is overloaded. We know that we might want to automate, but initially you don't really have to do that. Okay, so do things that don't scale first. Okay, so let's go to maybe some of the um, okay. So let's ask the third question. Okay, what do you think is the main obstacle now that you're facing in terms of sales? Okay, in terms of selling or to, you know, basically sharing or launching your product. And is there any particular person, in other words, a who, or maybe a technology, a tech that could help? Okay, so this is our third question. What is the biggest hurdle now you faced in terms of selling your product or service? And what would be a person or a tech that could potentially help you? Okay, so 1 minute for this. Okay, again, 60 seconds. Try to answer this. All right, let's start. Okay, 10 more seconds. All right, okay. So, yeah, this is, I think, I guess, just to encourage you to think a bit more. Selling what we really, I think, we want to treat that as a form of communicating with the marketplace, right, with your clients, to see if something that's of value to them that they actually want. Okay, another motto for YC is build something people want. So yeah, I guess this is the yeah, the takeaway. Okay. So let's now go to the 10x part. Okay, the mindset. Um, this week I actually talk about psychological flexibility. Okay, and this is one of my, I think, favorite topic and maybe a key skill is that, um, in life, a lot of things are actually quote unquote fragile. Okay, it means that they don't go your wish or you go your way. Okay, it may not happen the way you want or expect or like, right? That's the uncertainty of life. And oftentimes, let's say you set a goal, but you did not reach it, right? Or, it did not, you weren't getting as good a result as you expect, right? That often gives us frustration and a sense of failure. However, that is just, that is actually quite common, especially if you are challenging yourself to do something you have not done before. That's way out of your experience or your current capability, right? So failure actually would is actually a normal state, and we have to understand that as someone you might want to embark on the entrepreneur journey. And how do you actually face this is what's called psychological flexibility. Okay, meaning that you're actually flexible in terms of how, when you're dealing with these kind of uncertainties or quote unquote failures. Now, one of the ways is, you know, one of the key thing to this is you want to focus on, the gain, the progress, the things, the learning that you actually have, have done. And the other aspect is letting go. Okay, letting go of certain things. It could be of certain expectations. It could be, certain things you thought you have to do or you must do, right? Um, I'll again give I guess, an example of what I'm saying. For example, a lot of people think that having some kind of degree, or schooling may be necessary, right? Especially if everybody else is doing it. However, some of the best entrepreneurs out there, they did not really, necessarily go to good schools or even graduated, right? We all know the famous example of Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg. Although they are likely to accept, the rare types, but uh, I think that only shows that uh, if you want to, let's say, to build a business, right, that involves certain skills where going to a school may not be the best approach. Okay, not necessarily the best approach. Okay, it may still be the right place and the right approach for you, but that is something you have to really think deep about, right? Question or assumption to see if that's actually necessary. Or maybe there are certain aspects you can actually delete. It doesn't have to be there, right? You don't really have to spend the effort or energy to do that. Okay, so these are all, a kind of psychological, you're being flexible about the pathway. So one idea is that we want to commit on the goal, especially if the goal, the end goal is something meaningful to us, right? For example, like building a great business that helps people, that generates great revenue, that has a social responsibility. That may be the end goal. But in terms of the pathways, that is something we want to stay flexible and open, okay? Because new pathways will emerge as time goes and as you grow. You will see and be exposed to better opportunities, right? All right. So I think there's a great video that I think we'll probably share later as well. Is the Elon Musk's his 5-step process. Okay, because he talks about a lot of times we can just remove our assumptions, and then he has this process of removing the assumptions, um, and then you want to simplify your system first and make sure that you actually validate before you actually scale and automate. Okay, so there's a different stage. Okay, so um, one of the things you know that you can help with the being flexible is to actually go back to your past. It could be the past year, month, or even the past week, and to really kind of dig up and um, the golden nuggets, and to become more clear about what where you can actually go deeper and where you can actually let go. Okay, so for I think our first, I mean the mindset question for this week. Um, First is, where has your vision, okay, for your future self actually has become more clear and bolder or stronger in the past week? Okay, there may be just small traces, but that is actually something, once you identify, you can help to amplify that. And this is related, I think, for the first part, which is our identity, our vision. Most of the times, we're um, let me put it this way. Um, we set goals, okay, but we may find the goals hard to achieve. And it's not necessarily that we are not spending the effort, but it's actually because we are attached to our current identity. Okay, for example, I'll give an example. I started off as a programmer, a developer, right? That was my skill set. So I have the identity that I'm a programmer, I'm a developer. But unless I have shifted that to, let's say, I'm an entrepreneur or I'm great at sales, likely I'm going to hesitate to actually do selling or to do something that's more entrepreneur minded because my identity is still that of a developer, a programmer. Okay, does this make sense? So, one of the ways to break through this is you actually want to create or to shape or to pick up a new identity for yourself. Okay. And this is, again, you can do so with certain reflection, thinking, right? And, but the more clear that you are about your future self identity, the faster, the easier you can actually just move and go there. Okay. So the next question to ask is, um, which areas has your vision for your future self, in other words, your identity, become clearer, bolder, or stronger? Okay. um, Maybe this past week or since this past month, since joining the program, right? Okay, so for this, I'll give you 90 seconds to think about, okay, where has your vision become, for your future self? Clearer, bolder, stronger. All right, so 90 seconds on this. Let's start. Okay, 10 more seconds. All right, I hope you're all done. Okay, all right. So, our last question. Okay, this relates to once you have actually a vision for your future self. Ideally, that's a 10x version. Okay, that's a 10x, kind of future self idea. You can like then identify what are some things to actually remove. Okay, because unless you actually have a goal, you can walk almost any path, right? If you don't have a goal, you can, Alice in Wonderland. There was this story where Alice was faced with a, junction with many roads. She asked the cat, "Where should I go?" The cat asked back, "Where do you want to go?" Alice said, "I don't know." Then the cat answered, "Then you can just pick any road you want," right? So our approach necessarily is related to our goal. The higher the goal, the clearer the filter that has to be put in place to actually filter out the unnecessary stuff. Okay, so for that, our last question today is, what is your minimum standard? That actually you have increased. In other words, your floor has risen up. Okay, and you can look at perhaps just last week or maybe the last month if you'd like. I think for me, one of one of the minimum standard actually has been uh, how how much um, you know how much time, effort, energy am I going to devote into an unproven concept or unvalidated concept? In the past, I might just spend effort, energy directly and jump onto that to start to do things. But I think in the just this past week, when we are coming up with some idea, I actually try to find ways to validate that, by asking maybe some experts and some people in the field who knows to provide better feedback before we actually are devoted to that. And I think another area where, I have kind of raised up is that to be able to engage with our partners and clients more directly. Okay. Everybody has different ideas, especially when you're doing a teamwork. But it's important that you are also expressing, what you stand for, and as well as respecting what the other person stands for. And I think it's only when both of you are speaking out, you know, what you actually feel, right? And without diminishing the other person's integrity or input, that's when the best results can happen. Okay, so I think in that regard, my kind of standard has also elevated in the last week or last month. Okay, in that sense. So to have really honest conversations with our, collaborators and partners. Okay, so this question is, what's your minimum standard that you have raised in, you know, um, let's say in the past month or so? Okay, so this for 90 seconds. Okay, just try to review and write down. Okay, let's start. Okay, 10 more seconds. All right, okay, we're done. Okay. All right, so let's do some shares, okay, of the questions of today. And again, I'd like to invite you to share. You can do so either the answers, okay, or any insights you have gained, or any questions, right, regarding what's been discussed today. Okay, so Karthik, would you like to start first?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
So for the kind of launch, it would be, uh, I think it would be a silent launch because I'm trying an agency in future. So right now, I don't have the credibility to post relevant content, and people will not engage properly. So firstly, I'll build my credibility. I'll posting content. I'll get people engaged. After that, I'll post my results, and then I will again try to market it properly. Second, do I have a customer list? Right now, I don't have a customer list. Right now, I'm just focusing on bettering the skill. After that, I'll post my content, and then slowly it will build my credibility, and then I can start leveraging my contacts to gain further clients. How
All
do I
right.
plan growing it? It's the same. Firstly, building my credibility, and then leveraging the same. Main obstacles would be the lack of results. Right now, I don't have any results to show, so that would be a hurdle. So I need to work on that. About the mindset, where my vision has become stronger, I think I'm understanding more that I'm inclined more towards marketing, and it would be better if I focus on gaining more skills related to that. Then the things I need to remove, I think it would be procrastination, and I'm a little focused about perfection, and that's causing a hindrance. I'm not able to start. Just thinking that everything should be perfect, so I'm not. I'm delaying the starting process. So that's something I would want to change.
Okay, great. Is there any question you want to ask after answering these questions?
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. Okay, okay, all right. You probably want to think about, right? All right, so any feedback for Karthik regarding his answer? Especially, do you have any feedback for him? I mean, you can also ask him questions to clarify, right? Or maybe something intrigue you or makes you curious, right, in his answer. Do you have any feedback or questions for Karthik?
Yes, I have a feedback, just a general feedback that don't run for perfection right now. I think you should start working on it, and along with time, gradually you will understand where you are going wrong. I guess running behind perfection, you will lose something. This is what I believe. You should at least start, and then there will be definitely 1 or 2% mistakes. You will definitely find in the perfection as well. Nothing is perfect, I guess. You should at least start.
All right, thanks. I think that's yeah. Yeah, I guess the question is how do you start, right? How does one start? Right? All right, so I'll provide some feedback on this to Karthik as well. The first thing is that you mentioned about you don't have the list, right? And you're just doing silent lunch. I would argue you actually have a list, okay? And the list are the people in the WhatsApp group you're currently, a part of, the Create Unicorn WhatsApp group. Okay, that's your list. Okay. That is actually a list. Okay. Because either they are potential customers, users, or partners, right, for your agency. This is actually something, I think you can think about. Before, I think YC recommends highly to get a co-founder. Okay, it's a lonely journey to to just do something by your own yourself. So maybe one direction is to find someone in the group who resonate with what you're trying to build, right? And you guys can team up, all right? Maybe Vaishali here is one, right? Maybe you can find others as well, right? But just try to, I guess, team up. And you do have a list, which is the WhatsApp group, okay? That's thing. The second thing about procrastination, actually, procrastination is good. You might be surprised to hear me say that, but I didn't, it's not my idea, it's Dan Sullivan's. He actually has a book called Procrastination Priority. Okay, you can, it's a free download. You can just Google it, or maybe I think I'll share that later as well. Okay, procrastination, priority. Basically, what Dan Sullivan is saying is that it's actually a form of wisdom from our body, that we know that our current task or goal is too difficult, in the sense it's way beyond our current capability or experiences. Okay, and therefore we procrastinate, because literally we don't want to get ourselves exposed or be embarrassed or quote unquote fail. Okay, so it's actually a very intelligent self-protection mechanism. Okay, procrastination. Now, everybody procrastinates, myself included. There's probably something on my to-do list that I've been avoiding, right? But then, uh, I think this is now the important part. What Dan recommends is not just wait and do nothing. Okay, you actually do something about this, which is, if you are procrastinating something, likely there's great rewards at the other end. In other words, if you can cross over this hurdle, likely you will grow and become your next stage future self, and in a much better position. Okay, so how do you actually get cross, you might ask? Well, who, not how, is an important concept, and not just in theory, in practice as well. If you are procrastinating something for too long, very likely you are lacking a who. Okay, in other words, if you can find the right who to maybe to do it for you, or maybe to be your accountability partner, to actually check on you and force you to do it, right? Or maybe this is someone you have to report to, then you actually will be able to get over the procrastination. Okay, that's one thing. The second thought is what's called tiny habits, or atomic habit, which is try to take a baby step that you can think of towards whatever you're trying to accomplish, right? For example, you want to set up a marketing agency, right? Maybe the very next step is just go to ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT a question, a prompt. What does it take to create a successful marketing agency? Please list the top 10 most important, and then maybe please pick the top 3 most important. And then you can also feed back your own personal background, your interests, your schools, whatever, right? And then to ChatGPT and ask it to feedback. What should you do or take as the next step if you want to start a marketing agency? Does that make sense? Karthik?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Dude, are you feeling more energetic and hopeful now regarding your procrastination?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. That's a tiny step, right? It's just one sentence, a prompt to ask ChatGPT, right? But I think you are going to get some valuable insight and feedback, especially if you also, that AI know about more about yourself. So it can actually answer more customized responses. All right. So that's a tiny baby step that you can do today. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. So Vasali, maybe you'd like to share your answers, Vasali?
Yes, sir. So the
Yeah.
first question was about launch and when it will be launched. So I think the thing which I like to launch is not something related to any product or services, but my own thoughts. Apart from Pure Harvest and my MBA preparation, I'm also working on philosophy and all related to this. So yesterday I've already created my social media accounts, YouTube or Instagram for it, and have posted for the first time. I already had some social media accounts for my philosophy, but I found that those weren't working out. So because of that, I asked one of my friends who already has some of interest in posting on social media. So she suggested me something. I worked on it and changed the foundation, created something new, and launched my first post yesterday. So the second question was about list and how will I proceed with it. So yes, I do have list now in terms of my friends who helped me a lot in it. As an example, today I had some questions related to this and I asked one of my friends. So he answered me and suggested me something, and I'm working on it. And I'll proceed it with posting more and more on the same social media accounts because social media is something which gives audiences itself. I have to direct it, but the audience I'll get through social media only. The third question was related to hurdles. So the most uh, important hurdle which right now I'm finding is to creating content. What I'm doing is reading some books and posting on the base of that, but still all those I cannot post everything. So finding the correct content and publishing it the way the audience will like is the most important hurdle which right now I'm finding. The next one is vision. So my vision is right today itself is the same, being a marketing executor and work as a public speaker in terms of not in just in terms of philosophy but in terms of entire life also. I actually want to create a community. I can clearly see that there are lack of interest in philosophy in people. So for me, I want to create a community right now in which I can share my thoughts and learn from peoples also. And the last one was changes. So the change I can now see that earlier I used to do something randomly, I mean, in terms of post and content creation also, but now I'm focusing on it on the correct way. That what will audience like, what will not. As an example, yesterday itself I changed the foundation. So I think this is something which I have changed, clearly seeing on the goal and not focusing here and there. So that's
Excellent.
it. That's the answers.
Wow. Good for you. Good for you. Thanks for sharing. All right.
Thank you,
So
sir.
any feedback,
Thank you.
let's say from Karthik to Vasali? Do you have any feedbacks or questions for her?
I think related to psychology, she can check out channels like Psych to Go. They have grown very fast. Psych to Go.
I understood. I'm actually doing those also.
Okay. All right. So you recommended the site. Good. Good. That's a good resources. All right. So I guess I'm impressed, okay, by your execution. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I think that's definitely a good sign. And also
Thank
that's
you.
going to help you to get feedback. Okay, and then help you to improve and into a positive cycle. So that's excellent. Now,
Thank you, sir.
um, what I'm curious is that okay, you have the vision of being a marketer executive, right? Doing public speaking and also
Yes, sir.
related to philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if that is your vision, right? If that's the vision, what what would be something? And right now it seems like you are launching the social media, right? Just now and to create content for it. Uh, what? Okay, I guess I'm just curious. What do you think would be the most relevant type of content that you can do or create in relation to your vision, right? To become a marketing executive marketer, executive, and also doing public speaking in in philosophy related. What will be the
So,
most relevant content to build?
so in terms of marketing executive, I am still looking for MBA colleges and all. So I think after completing my MBA, my main aim is to create a link in between philosophy and real life. I mean,
Hmm.
I can clearly see that people do not have interest in philosophy itself. How will be they able to connect the link?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to create a link in between these two and make them aware.
Okay, okay, I see. So do you have the linking yet?
I'm still exploring,
Oh, okay, okay.
exploring. Yes.
You're talking about link in play, link in page. Is that what you're saying?
No, no, the link of philosophy with real life
Oh,
problems and
okay.
all.
Okay, how you link philosophy
Hmm.
with real life. I see.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I see. Okay, that is something I start exploring. Okay. All right. So, um, all right. I think we are at a a entrepreneur course. Okay. And I do like to distill. I like to see you guys become entrepreneurs. So my feedback is biased towards that. Okay. Which is how can you make this into your love for marketing, your love for philosophy, actually turn that into a business,
Yes, sir.
right? And there are great motivations behind that. For one, you can actually, I mean, combine what you love with what you make a living for potentially, right?
Hmm.
And that might give you more energy and focus. But also, I think that's also a way, if you really think about service and servicing, helping other people, I think having a enterprise, a social enterprise, right, may be one of the best, most effective approach to actually have an impact. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think this is what I would encourage you to explore since you're here, right? Since you're in this course and in the coaching, and you're also, helping out with, let's say, Pure Harvest. I think that's something to really keep in mind. Okay, which
Yes, sir.
is how can you identify the sweet spot that can be the most relevant, the most like cross, the overlap for your passion, right? I think there's the golden circle where um, it combines your passion, what you enjoy doing, right? And also what the world needs, okay, which is market, which is how you can, I call this bankable, meaning that people will actually pay you for it, okay,
Yes, sir.
with
Mhm.
money, right? But also your skill set, your unique ability, your uniqueness, what you're great at. Okay, so when you can find the crossover between these three areas, what you enjoy, what you're great at, and what the world wants, then that's the sweet spot. You might want to focus, more of your attention. In fact, most of your attention on. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so yeah, do you have answers to that? Just
No,
curious.
not
Not
right
yet.
now.
Okay, all right. But since now you know the concept, I think you can start to look forward, right?
Yes, sir.
As a filter to whatever attention, things, I mean, information or opportunities that come to your way. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So hope that helps. Okay. All right. So I think what we'll do now is again to do a wrap up. Okay. For today's, basically the coaching part. I'll share this feedback form
Sir, I had a
right here.
question.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. What's your question?
What was the name of that Tony Robbins student?
Oh, Dean Graziosi. DAN, I think, let me type. Dean Graziosi. I think that's how it's spelled. Okay. He's actually all over the place on the internet. Okay. He's really big on the Facebook and, internet marketing. Dean Graziosi. So he's also I think a really excellent guy. Actually, I would argue he's probably Tony Robbins' best student. Okay, and the evidence is that he's on stage with Tony promoting, his what's called mastermind. Um, yeah, so when you are able to actually work alongside with your teacher, your mentor, as peers, you're probably very good. Okay. So yeah, did
And
that
what?
answer your question?
Yeah, yes, sir. And what is
Okay.
that you said? Who know how?
Who now how? That's Dan Sullivan, right? Is that what you're asking? Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan, Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Okay. Those are actually two of my biggest mentors. I get the most influence, especially from Dr. Ben Hardy, which I have learned from him since 2018. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So these are actually, so maybe I'll share some of the, yeah, as a to do for me. Let me share I think the audiobook as well. Because, okay. So, it might be easier for you, just to listen as you're doing other things. This is what I found to be, time saving. Okay, so let's take 1 minute. I just put on the in the chat the form for feedback. Okay, so let's spend 1 minute to fill in. I'd like you to write down what's one biggest takeaway, biggest learning, and also immediate action afterwards. Okay, so let's start 1 minute. All right, 10 more seconds. Okay, all right. So I guess just quickly invite for a share. What's your biggest takeaway today and your next section? So Karthik, would you like to start?
So, like you said, Dan Sullivan's view on procrastination, that procrastination is good, but it gives your body, means it the body is given a sign that it is something that you'll get huge rewards from. So it's better to just take the action, even if it's a tiny step.
Okay, okay, nice. All right. What's your next action then?
Like you said, I'll put the prompts in Chat GPT. I'll check how I can.
Okay, excellent, excellent. All right. So Vaishali, what's your today biggest takeaway and your next action?
Sir, as you said that to create a link between my vision and entrepreneurial journey.
Okay,
So this is the takeaway.
I see. And action?
The action, I'll still have to explore that what can I do in this town.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, all right, okay. I would encourage, uh, to actually spend some thinking time. I found that tremendously valuable.
Yes, sir.
Time for yourself, just to think. Give
Yes,
yourself a question just to think.
yes, sir.
And, you can sit, you can lie, you can walk, right? But create a space and time for you to think. It's extremely important, especially in today's very, very noisy world. Okay. All right. So thanks everyone. All right. So I think that concludes our first coaching part. All right.
So
Okay.
just one
So
question.
yeah,
One
go
question.
ahead. Go ahead. What's the question, Karthik?
How important do you think is being shameless to sell your services.
Oh, okay. You mean shameless to sell services?
Because people view you in a different sense if you start promoting, selling your services, or posting your
Mm-hmm.
content.
Right, right. Okay. So what that's okay, I think that's an interesting. Can you be more clear about your question?
Like
Um what yeah, go
if
ahead, go ahead. What
I've
exactly are you trying to ask? Yeah.
if I've if I've created a product and I need feedback from people, or I want to sell it to people. Initially, if I'm just seeking feedback and I post it in my family group, initially there will be resistance from my side, and also the people in that group, they will view me in a different sense, as if I'm trying to like steal from them or just exploit their financial
Okay.
some
I
financial
see.
benefit from them.
I see. I understand. Okay. All right. So I think your question is how bold or how shameless should you sell your service to people, especially those that you already know, your friends and family? Is that the question?
Yeah, initially.
Right? Because initially, maybe you only have your friends, family as the list, right? As the list of clients, as we talk about. But
Yes,
if you do try to sell them something, that might change how they view you, right? As a person. And you're somewhat hesitate, right? Is that right?
yeah.
Okay, okay. That's a great question. Okay. All right. I'll try to answer it from two different angles. Okay. The first the shameless promotion angle. Okay. Which is actually I personally have faced the same question because I come from an academic family. You know, my parents, they are all teachers, professors. None of them has done any entrepreneur kind of stuff or business related. In fact, I believe my mother actually she dislikes business people in general. Okay, and thinks that they are like being over exaggerated, sometimes lying, not honest. Okay, things like that. So that doesn't, that's not really good education for me, especially for my personal, entrepreneur journey. However, sometimes the obstacle is the way. I'm at the stage now, even, if my mother is saying, some really nasty, terrible things to me, I can still smile at her and accept her as a person and really and still appreciate and love her. Okay. So that's the first angle. Remember we talked about psychological flexibility earlier, right? That's psychological flexibility. Karthik, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I guess my first angle of answering is that, well, that's just simply excellent exercise. As an entrepreneur, as someone, by definition, you're breaking the norm. You're doing something nobody else in your family or in your friend circle might ever attempt it. Okay. You are going to go under a lot of harsh views and criticism, at some point. And sometimes you don't, you may not like them, but that's kind of how things are, especially if your entrepreneur journey is not all smooth. Okay, for example, you're not making money or even you're losing money, right? That would be actually the terrible experiences. And people might criticize or laugh or whatnot, right? However, if you are a true entrepreneur, just think of Elon Musk. Even before Tesla actually become common and reality, he was faced with a lot of criticism and ridicule. People question about whether Tesla will actually happen or succeed, or many people actually think it's a joke, or worse, it's a lie, right? But we all know what happens now, right? Elon has proved himself to be correct against our odds, against all the criticism and all the negative comments. So I think that's just part of the business. Okay. especially if you're trying to both, do something new and bold, and learning to be flexible, psychologically flexible towards that. I think it's, part of the skill set. Obviously, you don't have to go all in. You can start small, right? It's a skill, it's a strength, it's ability, so it requires practice. So that's the first angle. The second angle is, well, sometimes there's good reason you might want to avoid those kind of things because it just drains your energy, right? It's not encouragement, right? It might make you feel discouraged. And I think this is the most important thing. The people closest to you, that the most accessible to you, they may not be your audience. For example, I'm an entrepreneur. The coaching I'm doing is actually about entrepreneur mindset. But my friends and family, most of them are not entrepreneurs. So if I were to sell them this stuff, my coaching, likely they will receive badly and criticize, right? Because they're simply not the audience. On the other hand, if one of them or if some of them is actually the audience that you want to serve and address and try to solve their problem, I think they actually will appreciate your sharing with them your product or service. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's say you have an uncle, right, who might have something that he wants to sell online, but doesn't know how. And if you're actually offering him this digital marketing online service for him, right, maybe at half price, I don't know, he might appreciate it a lot, right? Right. So I think the other angle is you really want to ask and question, are they the right audience? Is this product really for them? Maybe not, right? Then you should definitely try to find the right audience. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right, okay. I hope that helps. They're excellent questions, by the way. Okay. All right. So yeah, so I think that concludes sorry, I think, oh yeah, you already shared. All right. So I think that concludes our coaching session part. All right. So for those of you in the coaching call, move, I mean, see you for the next week. Okay. All right. So